Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economics Series. Today, we're going to dig into a huge idea that pretty much shapes our entire global economy, this belief in the so-called rational man. But what if that whole idea is a myth? And what if there's a much more powerful alternative waiting for us?
Okay, so let's dive right in with a really foundational question. You see, every single economic system, whether we think about it or not, is built around an idea of who we are. It has to make some kind of assumption about the person who's making all the decisions. So the big question we've got to start with is this: who is this person that's right at the very heart of our modern economy?
Well, in mainstream economics, this person has a name, the rational economic man, or if you want to get fancy, Homo-Economicus. And he's defined by a pretty clear set of traits. He is fundamentally self-interested. He's driven by selfishness, and his main goal in life is to maximize his own material wealth and personal satisfaction. Now, it's so important to get this. This isn't just some theory in a textbook. It's the actual model of humanity that our entire global economic system is built on.
But this idea of the rational man didn't just appear out of thin air. It was actually born from a very specific historical shift that happened in Western Europe. You go back to around the 17th century, and this process of secularization starts to kick in, separating religion from public life. This created the space for thinkers like Adam Smith to build economic theories on purely non-religious grounds. And that whole process really peaked in the 20th century, with the rational economic man becoming the undisputed star of neoclassical economics. So here's the crucial point, the real takeaway. The rational economic man is a direct product of a secular worldview. In this way of thinking, human reason and what we can see and touch, those are the only valid sources of knowledge. And religion? Well, it gets pushed aside into the private sphere. It becomes just a personal matter with no real say in public life, in business, or in how we actually structure our economy. And this, right here, leads us to a massive challenge. A question we absolutely have to ask ourselves. Is this model, this purely self-interested, materialistic person, is that an accurate picture of humanity? Does it really, truly represent who we are? Because let me tell you, the answer to that question shakes the very foundation our whole global economy is built on.
Okay, so now let's introduce a completely profound alternative. From an Islamic perspective, the way we understand the economic agent is built on a totally different worldview. When we make that shift from a secular to an Islamic framework, we find a very, very different person at the center of the economic story. You see, from an Islamic worldview, the number one primary role of a human being is that of an abid, which means a servant and worshiper of Allah. Now, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like an economic term, but it is the absolute bedrock. It establishes our main purpose as submission and obedience to our Creator, and that redefines every single action we take, including and especially our economic ones. And then, the second key role is that of a Khalifah, which means a vicegerent or trustee here on Earth. This is where economics really starts to come into sharp focus. This role gives humanity this huge responsibility of managing the world and all of its resources, not based on our own selfish desires, but according to the will of God. And this is where the sheer genius of the Islamic model really becomes clear. These two roles, Abd and Khalifa, they are totally inseparable. Our authority to act as managers on this earth, our role as Khalifa, is never absolute. It's always, always governed and limited by our primary duty as servants of God, our role as Abd. This dual role then brings us to the absolutely critical concept of amanah, the divine trust. In this worldview, the planet's resources, all of them, are not ours to just own and exploit as we see fit. Nope, they are a trust from God. This one idea completely transforms our entire economic relationship with the world, shifting it from one of selfish ownership to one of profound, accountable stewardship. So let's put these two models head to head. It's a showdown, right? On one side, we've got Homo-Economicus, the self-interested, rational man. And on the other, we have what we can call Homo-Islamicus, the God-conscious trustee. And let me tell you, the differences are absolutely staggering. First up, what is their core mission? For Homo Economicus, it's pretty simple. Serve yourself. All economic activity is just a way to get more personal, material stuff. But for Homo Islamicus, the mission is completely transformed. He's a moral agent, and his economic life is literally an act of worship, defined by fulfilling that dual role as both a servant to God and a trustee on earth. Okay, next, what's their ultimate goal? The rational economic man's goal is to maximize his personal wealth and satisfaction right here in this life. His timeline literally ends at death. Homo-Islamicus, on the other hand, is striving for something called al-falah. And this isn't just about wealth. It's a holistic success. We're talking spiritual well-being, social justice, ecological balance. A success that's judged not just in this life, but most importantly in the hereafter. And this difference in worldview has massive, massive consequences for our planet. Homo economicus, by his very definition, sees nature as an object to be conquered and exploited for profit. But Homo Islamicus sees nature as the amanah, that sacred trust. The environment isn't something to be dominated, but something to be cared for responsibly for the good of all creation. So look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical game. The question of which person we put at the center of our economic theories has profound, real-world consequences for our economy, for our society, and for our planet. When you get right down to it, the agent we choose to model defines the entire system. That choice determines what we value as a society. Is success just about piling up wealth? Or is it about achieving true well-being, that falah? It dictates our relationship with the environment. And maybe most critically, by extending our time horizon beyond death, it completely redefines what it even means to make a truly rational economic decision. And this concept of an extended time horizon, man, that is a total game changer. In the Islamic worldview, our economic actions are not morally neutral. They're part of our test in this life. Every single decision we make about wealth, about resources, and how we deal with other people, it all has eternal consequences. It directly shapes our final outcome in the hereafter. So this leaves us with a final and I think pretty provocative question. Mainstream economics has basically defined rationality as maximizing your own personal wealth. But when we consider a more complete, a more whole vision of humanity, one with spiritual purpose, with divine accountability, in an eternal timeline, we have to ask ourselves, is pure self-interest really the most rational path? Or is our purpose, and therefore our true rationality, something far, far greater? See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.